Hey y'all, on today's episode, we are switching it up a little bit. Chad Lentscher is interviewing me about my experience with alcoholism, and also we talk about women in recovery and kind of what we see there and how we can maybe be helpful. So tune in.
Welcome to Impacting Recovery Uncensored. I'm your host, Chad Lentscher, and this is a podcast where we take a deep dive into real, uncensored truths about addiction. I am here with Sarah Pritchard.
Hi.
Sarah, welcome.
Welcome.
And obviously, we have switched roles.
Yes.
How does it feel to be sitting on that side of the table?
You know, I thought I would be excited, but now I'm more nervous. I think more just because I'm talking about me.
I think we have that in common. I would rather talk about anything else.
Yes.
Other than me.
Right.
Well,
but here we are.
Yeah, here we go. So what I really want to get into today is just a woman's experience in the 12-step fellowships, woman's experience in recovery. I've gone to thousands of 12-step meetings. I don't know that I've ever walked into a meeting and there's been more women than there were men.
Yeah.
And I've been to a lot of meetings where I'm sitting and a female walks in and scans the room and then says, "Oh, I'm sorry, is this a men's meeting?"
Yeah.
Never had the opposite occur. And that's not, I don't think there's answers to that question. Just we can theorize on that stuff. But I think what would be helpful for our audience is to talk about, from a woman's point of view, what we can do to create a healthy environment, both men and women, to create a healthy and welcoming environment for a new woman coming into recovery. Mm-hmm. But we're going to do all that through your story. Okay?
Sounds good.
So the first thing, and a lot of it I don't know, so I'm super interested in the parts that I don't know.
Yeah.
Who was the first person to approach you and say, "Sarah, we got a problem"? And what was going on in your life? What did all that look like?
Gosh, I think probably the first person or people, there was a morning where my sister, my mom, and my friend were in my room when I woke up.
Oh, that's no good.
Not good at all. And I'm sure people had said stuff to me before, but I had gone through a breakup, and I was just kind of like blaming my drinking on that. And not necessarily blaming. It was like, this is what you do. You get broken up with, so you drink. Like, that's just how it goes. And then, so I'm sure there were plenty of other times, but that was the time when it was like a sit down, "Sarah, this is serious."
And how old were you when that event occurred?
25 or 26.
And then how long till you actually accepted help or?
So that was pretty close to when I went to treatment. Within a few months, I actually celebrated I think it was my 27th birthday in rehab. So not how I expected to have my birthday party, but.
So you didn't make it too long trying to navigate that. Like, look, I'm okay. You guys are making too much of this.
No, yeah, definitely not.
I'm sure you tried.
I did.
Yeah.
But when that had happened, I had already been drinking pretty much around the clock for months, like probably 6 to 9 months. And at that point, it was just like there was, it was really bad.
So I'm guessing high school, like a lot of people, weekend drinker, mm-hmm. and then college kind of moves into weekends and in a few weekdays. But you're getting through school and getting done what you need to get done.
Yes. Yep. I got through college in 4 years somehow. But I mean, everyone was partying just like me.
Yeah.
Maybe not exactly like me. Maybe I was a little bit more of a partier, but I could still go to class. I could still, fulfill my commitments, not to, 100% of my ability, but I was functioning for sure.
And then you joined the workforce.
I did.
And how long do you make it in the workforce? A couple years?
I mean, I made it. I remember my first job on a Monday morning, my hands were shaking at the computer because of just like a weekend-long bender and like Sunday fun day and all those things. And I didn't really understand, like, why am I so shaky? Like, this is, and I felt so anxious and like hot and cold flashes. And I'm like, can't type really. But that was my first job. And that was when I was 22. So there were probably, 4 to 5 years there where I, or even longer than that, 6 years maybe.
Could you hide it at that point, or you think people at that first job were like, check out the new hire?
It was still manageable.
Okay.
Like I was over drinking on the weekends for sure, but it was not where I had to have it to live.
How long did that take?
So that was, it was 2014 was when, the year of 2015 was just a disaster. That was really when my alcoholism just kind of took a downward spiral because of after that breakup. But I was kind of reflecting on this, and like in that relationship, my alcoholism was absolutely progressing, like for sure.
And maybe part of the cause of the breakup?
Oh, yeah. Like, I mean, I was asked, like, Sarah, can you not drink as much? Can you cut it back some? Like, why do you have to get so drunk? Why do you have to, this, and this? And alcohol was just such a normal thing in my life and in my friend's life and my family. And again, no one's drinking like I am, but it's just a normal thing that I just thought it was normal, which sounds crazy when I'm falling down at the bars and doing all sorts of things. But I really, before 2015, I really was like, this is just how you live life.
And so I'm an alcoholic, but I never progressed to where I needed to drink in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that a drink would help that hangover I had, but never like I cannot function without a drink. But you reached that place, didn't you?
Yes.
And what age were you when that started to occur? Where you get up in the morning and it is just part of the morning routine?
Yeah. So I guess I was 26. I was 26.
And so you lived a year like that?
Pretty much.
Oh, yeah,
It was awful.
That sounds awful.
Yeah.
All right, take me through the last 24 hours before you go to treatment.
So I guess a residential treatment, because I did go to like a detox before.
Okay, let's talk about that. Let's back up.
Yes.
So
I'll just kind of lead into this. There was a family weekend that we had, like a family reunion weekend at a lake here in Alabama, and this was when I guess my family had been talking, like, we got to get Sarah some help. Yeah. And I remember my dad, like, sitting in the car with him being like, Sarah, you're not okay. Like, this.
And are you drunk?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think my sister mentioned it on another episode, but like I rode up with my older sister and her fiance at the time. We went to Wendy's and I got back in the car and she was like, she smelled like vodka. Wendy's doesn't serve vodka.
Yeah.
And so it was a mess. And after that, they tried to.
I'm sorry, Sarah, do you go into these things with like a plan? Here's what this is going to look like. This is how I'm going to pull off this family time and still be able to get alcohol into my body?
Yeah, and it's not even like a plan of like, I got to get alcohol into my body. It's like, how am I going to survive?
Yeah.
Like, what do I need to breathe? I need alcohol. Just like packing my toothbrush. I need to make sure I have enough supply for the weekend because I was so physically dependent at that point, I could not function.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, yes, after that weekend, they enrolled me in like a little IOP. I managed to only stay 2 weeks. No IOP program in America is 2 weeks, so not sure how that happened.
But you wouldn't be a good alcoholic if you didn't pull that off.
Right.
Yeah.
And then shortly after that, I had an experience at work where, I had to be taken out of essentially the office, and my mom had to come, and I had to go to the hospital. And I don't know, it's all kind of a blur. There was, I said some things I didn't mean, and I really didn't mean them. It was probably more a cry for attention, and they put me in a place where you can't leave for 72 hours, and the mirrors are plastic, and you have to take your shoelaces out of your shoes, and I couldn't leave. And that was my first experience in Detox. There's like people in straitjackets, going down the hall screaming, and I'm like, how am I here? What is this? Like, what happened? I'm like calling my family, like, get me out of here. They're like, we're trying. They're not going to let you out. And so after that, I got out, and they're like, Sarah, you got to go to treatment. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I just experienced this for 3 days. Like, no way. I want to sleep in my own bed. Like, please, just,
and
I want
had
to
be like, this experience was enough to keep me sober the rest of my life. Like, if this doesn't get me sober, nothing's going to get me sober.
Yeah. I mean, I was just like, this can never happen again, obviously. Like, I will never let this happen again. And then I left, and I was so uncomfortable. Like, no alcohol in my system. I drank for, 9 months to a year. I don't know exactly how long, but...
Did they give you anything at that facility, or you just...
Yeah, they medically detoxed me, and maybe it was longer than 3 days. I don't know. It was such a blur. And so I'm like, y'all, I cannot go to treatment. Like, I want to sleep in my own bed, just because they were not letting up. So I'm like, just let me sleep in my bed for a few days. And of course, I ended up drinking. And then eventually I went to treatment. And
did you have to detox again?
Yes. And it was awful. It was so bad. My nickname at the rehab from all the other clients was Shaky Sarah. And I just like had my blanket, and it was the most miserable detox I've ever been through. And you would think that I'd be like, I never want to do this again.
Yeah.
Which I would never want to do that again. But yeah, so then I got to treatment, kicking and screaming, but I went.
I want to get into this later, but, one of my theories around why we don't see as many women in treatment or in our fellowships, I'm just picturing little Sarah Pritchard, like, terrified and shaking. And if I'm your dad, I'm protecting you and doing whatever you need me to do. And I think a lot of times with men, he's got to go learn to be a man. He's got to take care of this problem. Do you think that plays into it a little bit?
It could. I don't know the reason.
I don't know that any father's ever said, like, she's got to go learn to be a woman. You know?
Right. I know. I do know my sister, or someone told me, that my dad was like, if she gets arrested, we're not getting her out.
Okay.
I'm like, thanks, Dad.
Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah. But no, that's an appropriate response.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I don't know, but I'm sure there is, because it's like there's such a, lack of, the stigma, we all talk about the stigma, but there really is this idea of like rehab, like I think of the Amy Winehouse song, like I didn't want to go there. And I think everybody has a very negative idea about it. And so, yeah, I'm sure there are parents and fathers out there. I was like, my baby girl's not going to rehab.
Yeah, there's got to be another alternative.
Yes.
All right, so you land in treatment.
Mm-hmm.
Did you enjoy your experience? Did you hear a message of hope?
I engaged in everything.
Yeah.
I was not happy to be there, but I didn't try to leave. I honestly didn't even know that was like an option.
Yeah. That's why it's so, people don't realize that, total tangent, but people don't realize if you're in treatment and you leave, other people leave behind you.
Yeah.
People like you didn't realize, oh, we can do that?
Yeah. It's
really a very selfish thing to do. It impacts a lot of people when that happens.
Yes, for sure. And I think I cried every day. And there was so much self-pity. I mean,
Yeah.
so much poor me. I'm the victim. But I did engage in the groups. I was I think I probably got an A at being a client. I didn't cause any problems really. But I didn't have any sort of like awakening of like, okay, I'm going to change my whole life and like dive into this recovery stuff. I was just like, I'm not going to do that again.
Yeah.
And if I can get this cleared out of my system, I'm exercising, I'm doing some therapy, I will get everybody off my back and get my life together. And I'm not going to drink right now.
So you didn't have this aha moment, like I have got to start living a spiritual way of life. That didn't take place.
No.
But knowing your story, they at least did you the favor of telling you to, hey, you got to get into a 12-step fellowship.
Yes. They gave me, they said, like, you've got to find some women in recovery. You've got to work 12 steps. You got to, they suggested aftercare and certain sober livings. And
you're like, nah.
Yeah, I'm like,
Who
no.
needs that?
I still have a condo that I rent in Buckhead. Meanwhile, I think my roommate was like, I don't know if she's coming back. But yeah, so I didn't really take any of the suggestions. And it was hard for me to fully concede to my innermost self that I was a true alcoholic because I was sitting in treatment with people and heroin addict that was homeless and, talked about his stories of shooting up. And then somebody else, had 2-3 DUIs and I never got arrested. And so I'm like, I'm not as bad as these people. Yeah. Like I just, I got a little out of control and now I'm just going to get back on track. So there was and I remember I would not say, like, when you're supposed to share, like, in the little groups and stuff, like, I would not say, I'm Sarah and I'm an alcoholic. I would say, I'm Sarah and I have a problem with alcohol. Like, alcoholic was not coming out of my mouth.
So I'm thinking that you stayed sober for a pretty good period of time after that. But now what you're telling me, I'm thinking, well, maybe she didn't. Maybe she had one more, and not the run that I know of. Did you have another run?
Yes.
Oh, you did? Okay. So how long did you stay sober?
Maybe 4 days.
Oh, that's okay. I don't mean to laugh. It's just that's surprising to me. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Okay. So you stay sober 4 days, and see, I don't know any of this. So walk me through this.
I went to a Tim McGraw concert with some of my friends, and they had no idea. These were like work friends, so they had no idea that I was in treatment.
Yeah.
This was like another job.
When you got that first beer, nobody was like, what is what's going on?
And the thing was, like, I was like, I'm not drinking. I really made the intention of not drinking. Like, I got a water, and they were like, why are you not drinking? Like, come on, Sarah, get a drink. I'm like, no, I'm good with water. Come on, Sarah, get a drink. I'm good. Finally, I was like, okay, I'll have a glass of wine.
How much easier would it have been to just say, look, I just got a rehab 4 days ago?
Way easier.
Yeah.
But that's the like self-centered piece. Like I had so much shame. I was so scared of what people thought of me if I had just gotten out of treatment and I don't drink anymore. And God forbid I am an alcoholic. And so I had a glass of wine, and I actually only had one glass of wine. And my sister was at my my condo, and I like walked in the door, and she immediately knew, and she was heartbroken. I mean,
oh, that's sad.
Yeah.
Do you think what you're talking about is, as far as the embarrassment, do you think that weighs heavier on women than it does on men? I know for me personally, there was almost this proud to be an alcoholic and a drug addict that I can't see that occurring in a lot of women.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked with a lot of women, and that has come up.
Yeah.
It definitely came up for me. I just thought it made me weak.
Yeah.
But that just showed I had no clue what alcoholism was.
Yeah.
And I had no clue.
All right, so where do we go from here? Sister knows you're drunk.
Well, and it was just the one glass of wine, but she knew immediately, and that just kicked off another spree, right? Okay. The physical craving had
That's all it took.
All it took. And so it was another debacle and just more drama and probably, I think there was another hospital visit in there. I ended up going to an IOP for 90 days.
How'd you sell them on an IOP again?
I think it was more of just like,
we tried treatment.
Yeah. And then, so we're going to do this now.
Okay.
And I didn't drink for those 90 days in IOP. And the thing, it was a great program. Like, I really liked it. I liked going in there. It was a very nice place. Everyone worked there. It was very nice. But what I didn't understand, even though it was told to me from people in recovery, I was putting my IOP assignments as a priority. And I was putting recovery work second.
So had you been introduced to recovery at this point?
Yes. So I had met with a woman. She actually went to my high school, and my sister had reached out to her on Facebook because she had been open about her sobriety. And so when I was going through everything,
look how powerful that is.
I know. And so she reached out to her and was like, my sister needs help. Can you help her? And so she helped get everybody connected to the place where I went. And then when I got out, she was actually helping me with some recovery work.
So when you get out of the residential, the 4 days,
yeah,
I'm guessing you don't make it to a meeting in that time.
I think I did. I think I made it to a couple meetings. I think I actually met with her.
And what'd you think when you walked into a 12-step fellowship?
I'm not going to say a word in here.
Yep.
I'm not raising my hand. No way am I going to go pick up a little coin. No, I'm going to just sit here and I'm going to get out.
Just kind of did your hour and left.
Yeah.
No effort to make friends or identify. At this point, probably still looking for the differences.
Yeah.
Okay.
For sure.
Okay. So you're doing the IOP. Are you going to meetings regularly at this time? Have you found a sponsor, or is it still you're just kind of a visitor at these 12-step meetings?
No, I had a sponsor, and I remember I really liked my therapist because he was like, where are you at in your 12-step work? Every time I met with him at that IOP, which I think is really...
That is a good therapist.
Yeah. And so that was good. But for whatever reason, I still was not making it a priority, and I didn't understand the necessity.
So at this point, you still haven't had that, I need to live a spiritual way of life moment.
Because I was still embarrassed. I still had the lurking notion. I thought this was just like a phase. And I don't even know if I was necessarily like really thinking everything through. It was just like, this is what's happening in my life. I'm doing these things and whatever. And
so fast forward for me to when you do finally have that moment, not the moment that the big one that has kept you sober this long, but the one that kind of got you to re-engage or engage a little differently maybe.
Yes.
What did that look like?
So after that IOP, I was drinking and somewhat holding it together, or at least from the outside. And that was for I don't know, a certain period of months, maybe 6 to 9 months.
Yeah.
And then something happened to where it was like Groundhog Day, and I'm drinking around the clock again. And I could not believe it. And one day I just finally called my sister and said, can you take me to Detox? And it was a Monday. And like, poor thing, like, probably scared her to death. Because she's like, Detox? What do you mean? Like, you've been fine.
We've been doing so good.
Yeah. And like, I could have called anybody in the recovery community, but she was great.
In hindsight, do you wish you had called someone else?
So I didn't worry my sister. That would be the only reason. But when I talked to her, she's like, I don't even really remember that. So I'm like, I guess it's not that big of a deal. And so I went to Detox, and I wanted to go. I wanted to not live like this anymore.
So now you're walking into this Detox knowing like, hey, I'm just like you people.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
I may look a little different than the rest of you. You know, a little more petite, but I drink just like you do.
Oh, yeah. Yes. And so, yeah. And at that point, I had been working with another woman and obviously had stopped working with her. But, I remember being in there being like, I have a sponsor. It's fine, you know. But, yeah. And I was ready to do some work at that point.
Okay. So you leave. Do you go to the same meetings you've been going to? Do you go look for something different? I'm really what I want to get to is how you met your current sponsor. Or was this?
Yes, I had already met her.
You had at this point.
So the friend that had originally started helping me, she ended up moving to Texas. But also, even before she was moving, like, I just kept drinking.
Yeah.
And I think she was like, I can't. Can you help her?
Yeah.
Like,
Nothing
I'm going to pass her off.
Yeah.
And so she, this woman was helping me. And then, I fell off. I remember, I forgot about this, but I remember I went to my friend's wedding in Mexico and I drank and I held it together. And I remember calling her and being like, hey, or no, you know what? It was a text. I said, hey, I just got back from this wedding in Mexico and I drank and everything was okay. So I think I'm good. Thanks so much for your help. And she immediately calls me and she's like, hey, Sarah, that's great that you had a good weekend. And she was like, I'm just going to let you know from my experience, what I've seen, someone that drinks like you can never get back to the way it was, but you might be the first person to do that.
In the history of the world.
Yeah. And I was like, I am.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Have a great day.
Amazing. One experience with a level of success. We're like, let's disregard the 1,000 previous experiences that show us a much different side of drinking.
I know. Whereas like a normal person is like, has one or two like crazy stories and the rest of their drinking experience is very normal. We're like the opposite. But yeah, so she graciously took me back when I was in Detox, said she would help me again. And that's what I did when we got out and I went through, started doing the work, started going to meetings regularly. I was excited about recovery. I was okay with that.
And I'm guessing you've heard some of this stuff before. Is it landing a little differently now?
Yes, it was landing differently. It was a very different experience. And I really believe it was because when I went to Detox, like I wanted that. I wasn't, and that's just my personal experience. I know people can be pushed to treatment and then have an amazing experience. But for whatever reason, mine was, I knew when I went to Detox, like the way I'm living life can't work anymore. Just not going to work.
Yeah. And I think until you have that true step one experience, it's amazing how nothing really makes sense or fits together. But once you have it, it's like everything becomes clear. Like I've heard people say that, had no idea what they were talking about, but now I do.
Yes.
Okay. Did you feel comfortable walking in the rooms? I don't know if I want to get to this yet, but this is something we had discussed prior to. I kind of come from the thinking or teaching that leave women alone in the 12-step fellowships. Let them have their own experience. You can only hinder their experience. Let women help women. And it was brought to my attention that maybe that's not the best way to handle it. But I also don't want to be the guy rushing up to the woman like, thank God you're here. What was your experience with that as far as your interaction with men coming into the fellowship?
I don't remember like a lot during that time. I do remember there were times when men would talk to me and it was a little like they weren't trying to help me find a recovery network for women, you know? But I never had felt like super uncomfortable. Definitely had walked into meetings where it was very male heavy. And even today or over the years, I've walked into meetings and been like, is this a men-only meeting?
Yeah.
I think women have very different experiences, obviously, and there can be some specific experience that they have had around trauma with men and things like that. So there's going to be people that are extremely sensitive, rightfully so.
And I think those are the ones that I'm always considering.
Yeah.
You know, when a new woman
And I
walks
think,
into the fellowship.
yes. And I think, yeah, it's like women take over. But if there's not any women, or there's not any women going up and talking to that woman who just raised her hand that she's brand new, this is my personal opinion, and if everyone, has their own opinion, but I don't think it's a bad thing if the man has the right intention to just go up and say, hey, how are you? I'm Chad. I can connect you with some really great women. Would you be open to that?
Yeah.
Because if they're going to try to figure it out, I mean, I'm just thinking even before, like when I was doing that little 2-week IOP and stuff and going to a couple meetings before I had someone helping me, there were no women that I was going to walk up to in those meetings and say like, hey, can you help me? And no women were walking up to me.
Yeah.
And so, yes, it's our responsibility as people in recovery, men and women in recovery, to go help the new person. But if there's no women helping the new woman,
Yeah.
somebody's got to step up. And I don't think it's a bad thing to be like, hey, I know someone. Let me give you her number.
Yeah.
And that's it,
Yeah. And I fall short in that, and I don't know how often that happens. Usually there's at least one other woman there, but that is kind of programmed in my head. Like there's a woman, like, I have nothing that I need to offer her. She needs to stick with the other women in the fellowship.
Well, and I think if you feel moved to go talk to them, then do it.
Yeah.
Because also, what if the women that are going to try to help aren't the people that need to be helping her?
Yeah.
God may be like, no, Chad, I need you to go tell her so you can connect her with some people that would be better for her.
And I think a lot of this discussion is based on the health of the meeting. There are healthy meetings out there and
Yes.
unhealthy meetings.
Yes.
But something we all need to consider, making a person feel welcome and safe. And I don't mean physically safe, but safe in the sense that they feel they can get well there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's a fine line being like, are they hitting on me or are they really trying to help me?
Did you get a lot of that?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, but like I just, it didn't bother me because I just, brush it off. Like I don't care. Like I was never in a situation where I felt physically unsafe or, someone was super overbearing. It was just like, it's just dudes being dudes.
Yeah. I think you're highly unlikely to experience that in a 12-step fellowship.
Yeah.
It's safe in the sense that going to church would be safe. But it could be annoying.
Yeah.
You're trying to go to a meeting and get well, not trying to meet Mr. Wrong.
Yeah,
Right?
Exactly.
Okay. So this part of the story I do know.
Okay.
But let's get into it a little bit. You stay sober for a significant amount of time.
I do.
And then life things start to become important, right?
Yes.
You start to be blessed with the things that you hoped would come from a life in recovery.
Yeah.
Okay? So take me through that. Take me through. Let's go to reintroduction of alcohol back into your body. What?
Mm-hmm. So I had almost a year sober without drinking alcohol, which was a miracle for me.
Yeah.
And amazing. And in that time I had worked. I had done some work. I had really had an experience around the inventory process and seeing things in a different perspective. I had cleaned up some of my harms. Some. Very, very few.
Yeah.
And
just enough to feel better?
Just enough.
Man,
I know.
Shocking.
Never happens.
Yeah.
And then yes, life happened. I was focused on my job, where I was going to live, my relationship, the future of my relationship, my friends, my family, what I'm going to do for fun, all these things that the gifts of sobriety gave me in recovery. And then, do you want me to talk about the day?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's talk about the day that you had no intention of drinking.
Yes. The day, it was a great day. We went to a friend's birthday party, and it was like a pool party, and there were drinks everywhere. No intention of drinking. Had a great time. Later that evening, my boyfriend at the time said he was going to drink socially, and I said, I'll go sit with you. And
just so the viewers don't think you're signing off on this, your boyfriend had a drug problem. Him drinking didn't seem like the end of the world.
Right. And that's what I didn't understand because I'd never done drugs.
Yeah.
And I actually was very against drugs.
Yeah, they're bad. Bad people.
Terrible. and so I didn't understand, like, okay, if you're a drug addict, then yeah, drinking socially is not going to hurt you.
Yeah.
Just like, alcohol was my deal. I've never had a problem with pills, so I can take this Vyvanse that I'm not prescribed to, but I think I need it.
Yeah. And that was going on also, wasn't it?
That started a couple months before the drink, which makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah.
And so yeah, we went to a rooftop, and the waitress came up. He ordered a beer. She looked at me and said, "What will you have?" And I said, "A glass of wine." No thought. Nothing. Didn't think of all the harm that had happened. Didn't think of my family. Didn't think of my friends. Didn't think of calling my sponsor. I didn't think of all the embarrassment and shame from treatment and all the mess that had been caused over, months, years, whatever. Nothing. It was just like, I'll have a drink. And that was it. Like, it was the most shocking thing for me. Not in that moment, but like, fast forward a little bit, I was like, whoa.
The wheels came off quickly.
Yes.
Didn't they?
Yeah, within a week, I was in the hospital. Brutal.
I'm sorry to laugh, but it's just, that's the story of alcoholism.
I know. Yeah. And so that's when I woke up in the hospital and I was like, how? How is this possible? I didn't drink for a year and I'm in the hospital again within a week. Like, this is bananas. This is not how it was supposed to be. I was supposed to be really cute and normal and drink on a rooftop and have a normal life.
Did that night go fine?
Yeah, I mean, we overdrank. We went to another bar. I got wine on the way home. But and the next day I was, white knuckling to not drink.
Yeah.
But it was, nothing got out of hand, how it can
and
get.
that's, that thinking is in line with what you like to say. What happens if you miss your home group?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah.
What happens if you drink one time? Probably nothing.
Right.
Maybe something.
Yeah.
But that was your experience. Nothing bad took place.
Mm-hmm.
But within short order, the wheels are off. You're back in the hospital. But probably the best thing that ever happened. Changed your life forever.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. And I had never felt so just done. Like, done with me. I was so broken. I was so discouraged on the way I'd been living my life and really trying to have a good life.
Yeah.
And this happened again. And it was just this moment of like, you can't do this. Like, give it up, Sarah. Waving the white flag of surrender, like, I'm done. I'll do whatever.
And I think that's when we move from, when you got well the first time, right, prior to the year, there's this level of surrender that I need help. I can't do this. And then that level of surrender that you had there is more like, God, I need you. You are everything in my life. I can't make it.
Yeah. And I remember being like, I don't care who knows. I don't care anymore. I don't care.
Yeah.
Because I was so wrapped up on what people thought. I was so wrapped up on people being like, Sarah's not drinking? What's wrong with her?
Yeah.
And in reality, people are probably like, thank you, good job. Like, finally, she's not drinking, you know?
We love when people arrive at that place.
Yeah.
Because they are just, we know they're going to get it. They're so easy to work with. They no longer have an opinion about things. They just follow direction.
Yes. Yeah, I say it all the time. Like, if my sponsor had told me to jump in a lake in 30-degree weather, I would have done it.
Yeah.
Because I was so done.
Did those amends look a little different this time around?
Yeah, they did. I still was terrified, and I still didn't want to do any of them. But what happened through the process of making them, I wanted to start with the least uncomfortable ones that I thought would be the least uncomfortable. Of course,
which is a smart thing to do.
Yeah. And then it opened my heart to be more willing to do the ones that were going to be really hard for me.
Yeah, I think those two different amends experiences, because our stories are so similar in that the first time I'm doing them, it's a formality. I need to do this. It's something I have to do. It's more about my sobriety and being sober. And the second time is just like, I have created an S show out of everything.
Yeah.
And I have got to go clean this up.
Right.
I owe it to these people.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it became to the point where I was like, I need to do this. Like, it doesn't sit well with me to not have this. Yeah.
I know the other major difference, I'm guessing you had some pressure to, Sarah, you got to help some other women, but now it's real.
Yeah.
You know, like, this is my life. I'm helping other women. And did you start immediately?
So what's interesting is when I woke up in that hospital bed, the first thought that is not of me was, Sarah, you're going to help a lot of people. And I'm going to get emotional because that's so not how I operate. You know, it's more of, oh, am I here again? Oh my gosh, what a mess. Which I had those thoughts, but for that to be the first thing was so God. And it just validated everything in me that I knew that's what I needed to do. That was the one thing. There were many holes in my recovery, but that was the one thing I had not done. And it was told to me over and over and over, Sarah, you got to go help other people. And so yes, I was very willing to do that because I knew I had not.
Now, as a result of that, you have a busy life. You got 2 boys, you're married, a business owner, run a household. Can you imagine trying to do everything you do on a daily, weekly basis without this design for living?
No.
Now, forget that. Let's say you stayed sober.
No.
Could you pull this off?
Not even close.
Yeah.
I mean, just take being a mom, for example. I say this all the time. I couldn't be the mom I am today without recovery.
Yeah.
Without God. No way. I do not have the tools in my chemical makeup to be able to be a good mom. Like, I need this way of life.
Being a mom and even being a partner to somebody, being married, that's like high-level human experience stuff that I think a lot of people go into really ill-equipped. Even in recovery, I've tried that and failed miserably. I can't imagine attempting to do this stuff without some really, really good tools.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the way I operated in relationships, take the drinking out of it.
Yeah.
And my ideas around what a boyfriend should be or a significant other should be, like, delusional.
Yeah.
Crazy. And I had all these expectations for them, yet I can just do whatever I want. And if I mess up, that's no.
Yeah. You're just lucky to be with me.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. I'm such a catch.
Yeah. Anything else we can address just, to assist a new female walking into treatment or walking into a 12-step meeting? guidance or just anything that's obvious that we need to point out? Anything that maybe you experienced as a female that I just wouldn't even think about or understand as a man?
So I don't know whether you would have experienced this or not, but one thing that I will say about with women in recovery, go sponsor and help other women.
Yeah.
Because we need you.
Yeah.
And that was told to me when I got out of the hospital. Like, Sarah, I know we've been talking about you helping other people, but like, first off, like, you can't think about you for too long until you drink. So, because you are so selfish and self-centered. But two, there are people out there dying and like they need your help. We need you. And people tell me all the time, like, Sarah, you work with a lot of women. I'm like, yeah, maybe if more women did stuff, like I wouldn't have to. Yeah. And I'm not saying there are tons of women out there that are helping the recovery community. But since we're a smaller pool already, there's even a smaller pool that are willing because, of whatever. Like being a mom is absolutely a full-time job. And if you're working or what, like for me, I have to set aside time to go help another woman. Yeah. Like I have to make it a priority, even if I don't want to get a babysitter to go meet a woman or go get a babysitter to go to a meeting, or I'm missing out on, dinner one night. It's not the end of the world. Now, if I'm missing dinner every night, like then I'm like, okay, where are my priorities here? But we do need to, as women, I believe, make it a priority out of our week or whatever to go be helpful to the next woman because she needs it and we wouldn't be here without somebody that helped us. And then encourage them to go out there and sponsor because we really it is like it's sad because I've heard it so many times, like I just haven't found anyone that I like have resonated with, or there's just not a lot of women in meetings where I live, or the meetings I'm going to, like nobody's available, or because a lot of them they'll ask you to raise your hand if you're available to help. And I've been in meetings where not one woman raises her hand. Yeah. And even if I'm not available, I'm raising my hand and I will try to connect you with somebody. Yeah. Because again, I wouldn't be sitting here if it weren't for the women that have helped me. Yeah. So.
Anything we didn't cover? Anything you'd like to address?
No. I mean, I think we covered it.
Okay.
And if we get questions, we can always come back for part 2.
Yeah. Well, this has been fun, and I think we will have a part 2 at some point.
Yeah.
With you and your husband and talking about that. There's a lot to unfold there. A
lot to unpack.
Yeah, unpack there. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of Impacting Recovery Uncensored. I hope today's conversation has inspired you, opened your mind. Don't forget to like and subscribe and follow us on social media. Thank you.